like for the.
Unless you want me to just record it on my iPad.
I guess it's good.
So just tell me that.
No,
Like here, type it in.
Oh
Email
no,
it
you're
to me.
good. Yeah.
Email it to me. Email
So
it.
yeah, so everybody that signed in, I can get that list from Andrew, and then we will send you the presentation that we're using today, just so that you can see what we went through. It's a really good overview of systems.
What's that next year right
Okay. Which one? Which account? The 80
now?
and
You're at
55?
Texas State.
Okay. Still forwards it, so let me get my passwords up too.
So she ditched you.
I did
Oh.
not ditch you. We're gonna win database. Don't worry.
Started.
You guys have your email?
I was hoping you'd be ready
Yeah, so if you do have your laptop and you have this presentation because you signed up for this prep course before, you can go ahead and look at it. Okay, so do you want me to turn this around or?
Yeah, we can do that.
That's
And then
the
once
operator.
Andrew gets it up, we'll have
Is it
this
record?
to be that way.
Recording, that's great.
Okay, so here's our proposed agenda. Could change, might not. But today we're gonna overview like system analysis and design, and then the use case diagram that was created for the project last semester at Nationals. So that's what I handed out. And then, hey, yeah, sorry, I don't have another handout, but I'll get one to you. So then next week, next Monday, we will do this again, and we will go over use case descriptions for last year's competition and the sequence diagram. And then on Thursday, we will have a room reserved, one of the labs. I'm not sure if it's 332 or 334, I have to check. But you'll get an email from us, and then we'll go over the class diagram from the competition last year. And then week 3, we'll go over activity diagram and the state machine diagram. And then week 4, we'll go over the prototypes and the formatting for the deliverables for the competition. So who's taken system analysis and design? So that's a lot. And so who has not? Is it just one?
Taking it right now.
You're taking it right now? Okay, so I'm just saying, try to partner up with someone who has taken the course already, just because this is a lot of information to talk about in just 3 weeks. So if you haven't taken the course before, it's probably going to be really challenging. Just like I have. Okay. Okay, so this is just directly from the competition. Their summary and overview says the system analysis and design competition will allow teams of 1 or 2 students to utilize their analysis and problem-solving skills and apply them to a real business problem within an approximate 3-hour time frame. Is it 3 hours or 4? I thought it was 4. That's weird.
4 that was on the instructions.
It
So
should
we
be
got
4
it.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Contestants will be presented with a problem statement, and from this they'll be required to design a document and solution using either a structured approach or an object-oriented approach. We'll review that in a little bit, but what we learned in system analysis and design was the object-oriented approach.
It's 3.5
Oh, okay. Thanks. So it's 3.5 hours. So yeah, so you can either do this alone, which I don't recommend, but you can get a partner too.
And once each weekend of the system
Yeah. So today we're going to go over this presentation, which is a good overview of systems, and then the last 30 minutes we'll go over last year's use case diagram.
So if you guys have taken just like a little refresher, the systems development life cycle, and there's some like good little overviews on this, but you know, we want to identify the problem and monitor, discover and understand the details of the problem or the need, design the system components that solve the problem, and then build, test, integrate the system components, and then lastly complete the test and deploy the solution. So we are gonna,
So like I mentioned before, there's 2 approaches to this competition. There's the structured analysis and design, which we did not learn at school. That's data flow diagrams, use case descriptions, which we know that, but process specifications, data flow descriptions, and the entity relationship diagram, we know that too. but the other components we don't really know, right? So instead, it's probably best to go through the object-oriented analysis approach for this competition. So that would involve the use case diagram, the use case descriptions based on the use cases in that use case diagram, the activity diagrams, or you can do a system sequence diagram. Did we find out which one's better today or not? So on the competition, it says you can do either a system or an activity diagram or a system sequence diagram. We're not really sure, which one's better than the other, but we're going to try to find out. The winning competition from last semester, though, did a system sequence diagram instead of activity flow. So I don't know. The state machine transition diagram, which I don't think we covered much with Dr. Bisnescu last semester. So hopefully we can learn more about that this time. And then the class diagram and a prototype. So that's what they'll be looking for in their deliverables.
And so here it just, we just literally copy and pasted this from the stuff that we had, but it goes through with the scoring and how much each part is. A lot of the opportunity is going to be using the right software, formatting it correctly, making it look professional, because they want this obviously needs to look as professional as possible to get the highest score. So it's a business solution that could be used in a real world setting. So the things that you need to make sure you have on either your personal laptop or you need to talk to Jennifer Crow about getting a laptop from the department. You should definitely look into getting Visual Paradigm for this competition. If not Visual Paradigm, Visio, and those will be used to make your diagrams. You'll need Word as well, possibly Visual Studio for prototyping. And all of
then,
these are different prototyping. So like you can use either Access, Word, Photoshop, or Visual Studio are kind of the recommended ones to use. Yes.
Yeah.
So we will need to bring our own computers to the actual competition.
so you
as
can
well.
either bring your own computer or you can check one out from the department. So
Here,
Yeah.
ahead of time with this.
yeah, and you need to do it way ahead of time.
Right.
So Jennifer Crow is in room 308. She's on the 3rd floor. If you leave the elevators in front of the department office, you take a left, and then you go through those doors, and her office is over there, and you'll have to work with her to get a laptop for regionals. And just make sure that your stuff is up and running with these programs.
And you'll need the product key for Visual Paradigm, and the school has that, so you will probably have to talk to her
Or Dr. Bisnescu, who is on this floor. But
So just with like the formatting, make sure that when we're going to talk a little bit about structuring the diagrams in a way that makes it professional, the flow is correct, and then you might want to think about putting all the winning ones have done like table of contents so that you're able to see which diagram you're using or what and where it is. Yeah.
sure. So just an overview of the use case diagram. We'll talk a little bit more about it later, I guess. But so in your use case diagram, which is the first step that you want to do for the contest, the solution. So you have to identify the actors and the use cases, which can usually be identified by verb-noun analysis, I think it was called, and their associations to each use case. So hopefully everybody remembers this. I'm in advanced systems now, and I'm like a little shaky on it, but
We're going to go through, I guess, the UML notation today, but you always want to make sure that you have your use case titled and the automation bound, that you're using the right actors, and then the associations. We're going to talk a little bit about the includes and excludes relationships and just knowing what keywords play with what and when to use those associations.
And by the way, if you're wondering what the competition looks like, don't forget that you can go to AITP NCC-contests, think it's .org, or I'm not sure, but I will email the link to y'all, and I've also put it on our Facebook group page today. And you can find the problem statement from last year and review it. It's like 12 pages, so I didn't want to put all that. Sorry.
So this is a use case description. Going through this, we were thinking about making templates, because you are allowed to have, we're going to talk to, I guess, Baton about what templates or materials you're allowed to use, but I believe you're allowed to bring templates with you. So if you make these beforehand, it's a lot easier if you've already got a chart in Word, so that you can just fill the information in versus making it
During the competition.
Yeah, right.
So definitely a big suggestion there. Try to make your templates before the competition.
And so this just has all of the parts of the use case that should be
Use
in your
case description.
Use case description.
So Liz,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of needs a
I
password.
think it's still going
Yeah.
though, because there's a green light on it.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, so your activity diagram, remember we're going to try and find out what the advantages are of both the activity diagram and this system sequence diagram. But for the activity diagram, we did put up kind of all the symbols that you'll need to know for the UML notation. And these are things that are really easy to find in Visual Paradigm. That's why we really suggest going with that. And we'll go over that software when we have the projector. So if you guys do have laptops or you want to check one out, just please do that next week, because we're going to start going over it. And it's really quick if you don't know.
Way better than
What you're
Visio.
Yeah.
Way better. Yeah. It does a lot of work for you, does a lot of formatting for you, so.
Yeah.
We'll have a projector on Thursday, so try to make it Thursday if you can.
So the activity diagram, this is just sort of the overview on what it looks like, but it's going to walk you through the system and just knowing which actor does what activity and sort of the flow of that. And like I said, we're going to go through all these different things on different days, so I don't want to really expand on anything too much. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to ask. This system sequence diagram, this was one of the best solutions that we found for one of the use cases. So it goes over, which part of the system is doing what, the controller part of it. If you guys haven't taken systems, I'm sorry, some of the stuff is a lot to go over, and then the looping and the if-then statements, and just putting that into the diagrams.
And
so
you
that
said that Visual Paradigm
Yes.
makes this for you.
Yeah.
Where
Oh,
Visio,
you have to make a piece by
Visio,
piece.
you have to make it like piece by piece, and it's like impossible. And like this is really
No, you
nice
just like
and-
add another layer to it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
nice.
yeah.
So we really need to get this on
Yes.
all our computers.
Definitely suggest getting Visual Paradigm.
And then this just, we're gonna go over a little bit more about the optional and the alternative loops. This is a class diagram. We're gonna spend a whole section on this, because doing a noun analysis and picking all of the classes and attributes to them, and then finding the methods as well. It's really easy to type and find everything in Visual Paradigm to just get it made, but pulling each and every class out of the reading is going to take a while. So
Again, it's 12 pages, and it's very hard to read. Like I tried to sit down just last night, like looking through it, and I was just like.
Is this national or regional?
So this was nationals. So
Okay, yeah,
again,
that's the one we
regionals
looked
is
at.
probably going to be regionals is probably going to be a lot easier than this.
Study hard though.
But if you're preparing for this, then you're like going to be really good at regionals, right? So
That's the example from the
Yeah.
regionals? Okay, wow.
no, this is
From
the example from nationals.
That's what I meant,
Nationals,
sorry,
yeah.
sorry,
Yeah,
That's what I figured it looked like.
yeah, that's really,
that team
really
was
in
good.
depth.
I gotta find out what team that was. I don't know if it was Mara and Lacey or if it was like BYU kids.
It
Or
was
I don't know.
I think what's her name
Tana?
took that. Yeah, Tana took first
Well,
place on
imagine
that
that.
one. Imagine that.
well,
Wow.
So these are sort of the things that we're gonna go over when we go over class diagrams, but just knowing the structure, which, all the classes, like identifying them, which is, we talked about today in, database, is really identifying what the classes are, what the attributes are, and what the relationships between them, so that it's a lot easier. We're going to go over generalization and specialization, the 0 to many, 1 to 1, and 1 to many relationships, and then the association classes. And this is just, I zoomed in and took a smaller picture because it was just real in depth there. So you can see here, just a part of it is, I mean, there's just so many components to it that it's going to take a second to look over. This is the state machine diagram. So this is one thing that is like towards the middle or the end of the semester and sort of gets cut from the systems class.
So that means that we really need to look at it.
Yeah. So it basically is the set of rules that it's going to go through in order to create like different forms or find certain items in the program. And then there's 8 steps that you need to follow. A lot of it pulls from the class diagram, so you need to make sure you have a really good class diagram. And then from those 8 steps, it'll be out of chapter 5. So there's, I mean, it's listed in there. So if you guys have the systems book, before we do that day, I think it's in a couple weeks, please look over it just so you have sort of a general sense of what we're gonna do, and then it'll make it a lot easier.
So if you don't have the systems book from 30 through 74, is that what class
Yeah.
you took? Then try to find it, like a PDF version, or buy it again.
PDF. Needs PDF.
I totally suggest doing that.
You bring the textbook to the competition.
Yes, yeah, you can totally bring the textbook to the competition. And did we bring our class assignment to the
We brought a
competition
lot
too?
of stuff, but
I
I wasn't
think
sure how
I
much.
think you're allowed to bring any
I
kind
think
of
you're allowed to bring like any
Materials.
materials.
But you've got to keep in mind that I can't like stress enough what a small amount of time it's in. Like we are going to show you in a little bit how we're kind of going to break things up and suggest
How we
that to
think
you
right
guys.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, how we think it should be broken up. But these are examples of the prototype. So the prototype is a place that you can get a lot more points. The more, I guess, the more it explains, the better it looks, and if it looks like it's actually talking to each other versus the screens, I guess that's the best way I can put it. But there is in the example, there's like a really good section that says how you can get more points, which is the prototype. And these are just some examples of that. And then these are our strategies.
So I guess our strategies for winning are what we just mentioned. But so it's not 4 hours. Turns out it's 3.5. So that makes it even more stressful. But yeah, but really practice a lot. If you can make sure that everything that we put in the slideshow is really everything that you need to review from the class. Like every component is in the competition and they're looking for it in their deliverables. So what else is I going to say about that? There are also examples in the book as well, like we did in the systems class. So try practicing those. This is like studying for a test for school. Even though this isn't really, I know it's not school, but that's what it takes, I guess. So approaching the problem. So again, it is a little intense being a little packet here. So with each of the deliverables, so you've got like class diagram, use case diagram, all the different things you have to do. We were thinking that the best way to approach that would be to do the use case diagram together. So okay, great. So reading it together. So read it separately so that you both understand it. You need to really read through the entire packet. And it's going to be hard. It really is. But if you've got 2 brains going at it, then you'll work through it. So if you do the use case diagram together, which is going to be based off like the first 1 or 2 pages, then that would really benefit you to do it together and help you understand it. Also the use case descriptions based off of that use case diagram. Doing that together I think would really benefit you too. And then break it up. So let's say, so I've taken database, but Gabby is in it now. So I will probably end up doing the class diagram. Does that make sense? And then she will do the sequence diagram or the activity flow. And then, okay. And then, I will do the prototype and she will do the other. So.
Okay.
But yeah, so breaking it up, and then you also really need to leave yourself about, I think at least probably 30 minutes to compile everything and put it all together, and try not to edit it too much, because then you'll start changing things and things won't make sense, and just have to like leave it the way it was. But after you finish each of your deliverables, like whenever I'm done with the class diagram, I run it by her, see if that makes sense, and then we're done with it and we move on or whatever. So you have to give yourself plenty of time to compile it and turn it in the right way.
Is submitting the work part of the 3.5 hours, or will they?
Yep.
Yeah.
They'll have like a specific way to
They
submit
have
to.
very specific.
So that's why using Word and exporting it.
Yeah.
And make sure you don't put any names or identification for your school,
Yes.
or you'll get kicked out.
They'll outline all of that. But you'll see in the, the solution from last year, their team 39, that's why I'm not sure who it was. Could be our friends at BYU. We're gonna beat them this year. They took like all the trophies last year.
So, yeah, that was pretty much it. So, do we want to just start reading through and going out and finding all the use cases? And
Yeah. So I guess that brings us to our second part of this, which was going through the use case diagram. So I gave everybody a handout. I sincerely apologize if I did not give everyone a handout. I think I'm only missing one person. So you could look on with someone else.
I gave her mine.
Okay. Well then share it. Oh, well you're not doing the
Yeah.
competition. So you can take it back. Because Taylor didn't get it. Is anybody else missing it? So this, what I have printed out is the first 2 pages of the problem statement from nationals. So this is where we would grab our use case diagram from. So I thought it would be a good idea to start with that and maybe just talk about all together how we think we should structure the use case diagram, and then I can show you what they did last year based on this. So, do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Do you all want me to read it? Do you want to read it yourself? And then, what do you think? What would be easiest for you to identify the noun and verb in the whole use case diagram flow? Anybody?
So,
Alone?
do you guys know what we're looking for right now? Like what
I don't know
elements?
what a use case diagram is, besides people who haven't taken the class.
So we're looking for the actors, then the use cases, which is broke down.
By the way, I learned in Lee's class today in advanced systems, he said that you should only have 5 to 7 use cases. That's it. Otherwise, you're probably doing something wrong. Yeah, I know, right? But that's consistent with what was given last year. They only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 use cases for this problem. So that all makes sense. And then, what was the other thing he told us to do?
It was a question of you. What, it was the question of what do you want to let from home?
Yeah,
Can
like,
I
so
help you?
what does the
Can I-
user want? Yeah.
So I can ask them, trying to figure out what.
But, okay. Well then, go ahead and, I guess, read it on your own, if you want to read it on your own. I know Ross does. So identify the verbs and the nouns, and whenever you're done, just look up and we'll start talking about what we think should be the actors and the use cases.
He said one way to identify some of the use cases is by asking, you're looking for, just kind of think of it almost as a phone call, like you answer the phone and say, how can I help you? The user is gonna say, I want to do something, so if you think of it as, I want to, blank is what you're looking for.
And another thing is don't make assumptions.
I almost
talked
made
about
an
that.
entire slide about that, guys. So.
You should have. Don't make assumptions, but it's okay for
But
Yeah.
when you do that, you wanna make sure that you're documenting it
Yeah.
We
somewhere
assume
in
that.
there.
Yeah, exactly. So we just have to put a section in there that you assume something. And also make sure that all of your use cases are very broad. They're not like specific things. Yeah. And actually login is not a necessary use case. I didn't know that. But I learned that today from Lee. So login never needs to be a use case because pretty much every system logs in. So, yeah. This will give him points. He was here half the time. Okay, so you guys still looking at it? Okay, got it. Okay. Alright. So, what's this gonna look like? So what do we have to do first?
Automation boundary.
Bingo, the boundary. Okay, let's do boundary.
Which one?
Just because Lee said to do that today. Okay. Alright, Now remember the system, this is the system inside this is the system, this is the boundary. So the system has a name. Don't forget to name your system. What is the name of the system that's on there?
Automated project management and scheduling.
Ding, ding, ding. Blah, 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 blah. And schedule. Okay. So, I think I am, but that's okay, we'll worry about it later. And of course, we won't be drawing this out. That's another thing. Probably shouldn't draw your stuff. Just go ahead and use your Visio or visual paradigm. Just edit those, because that would take too long. All right, so who are our actors, or how many do we have? Anybody else but Andrew?
We've got a project director,
Right.
project manager, get employees, and I think, well, team leader is created. And then I think that becomes an actor.
Okay, right. Yeah, so you said project director, you said team lead, is that what you
Project
said?
director.
Team leader. Project director,
And a project manager.
yep.
We have employees.
Oh, I'm sorry. So.
If you look at the second page, there's like 3 levels that are highlighted. So I feel like those would be the main 3, and that's really in the system requirement statement, they really mention the project director, project manager, and team leader.
Because
CIO.
the employees aren't actually doing anything,
Yeah,
With
and
the
neither is
system,
the
yeah.
CIO.
and neither is the CIO. So we're just talking about the
What-
actors that are specifically interacting with the system. And that would be the project director, the project manager, and the project, what's he called? The
Team leader.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And our use cases, what do we think the use cases are? Okay. And I'll just write all of them and then we can discuss what we think is right or wrong. Create project, anybody else?
Create the teams for the project.
Create teams. Okay.
Assign employees to the teams.
Okay.
Update information.
Hey Taylor,
Mhm.
are you happening to are you writing this down?
I'm doing it in visual paradigm, so that way
Oh,
I
you
can
are?
email it
Okay.
to you and
Just
y'all can
curious.
send it
Because
out.
I was thinking I wanted to write, I meant to do like a writing. Oh, okay, no problem. I just wanted to write it all down for the people on the website. Okay, what else?
Assign tasks to the teams.
Okay. Now, has anybody actually seen the solution that was posted on the website yet? No? Good. Okay. Debbie, got anything? Shouldn't. The changes. Nothing but small here. So do we think that's it?
You'll have to assign tasks to the team members.
Teams and team members? Okay. So, right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that falls within probably the requirements, right? You should have 5 to 7 use cases. But I still think that we should refine these anyway, just based off of what I know. Okay. Okay. There was so if you look back in here, where was the create project profile? Is that, okay. So see in the system requirement statement. I don't think that's up here. So the project director creates a project and a project profile for each project. So I think that you could leave it as create project because project profile is something specific within the project. Or we could read this another way, right, I guess, and it could just be create project profile if we think that is the most.
Does it create both of them or is one created by the system?
So,
Let's see, if you look at the flow chart, that was one thing, it's create project, and the
profile.
second thing, under project director, it says create project profile for each project.
so I guess if you think about it, what he's actually doing on the system is creating a project profile, not the project. But I can see that it would be read two different
So
ways.
maybe it's like there's a project, and then there's a project profile
Within the
basically
project.
describes the project.
Uh-huh.
But the project could be
Yes.
like project A.
Yeah.
Project profile is project A is about this stuff.
Right. So since the CIO is telling him to create the project, so I think it could go either way. All I'm saying is that the winners of last year, they put create project profile instead of create a project.
Well,
But
okay, because that makes sense, because to create the project profile, you had to create a project to make a profile about it.
And so,
So like it's one
if you
step.
have to
Right.
do something, would that be an includes relationship or an excludes association?
Good question.
Yes, it's required.
so when it says that, so in the second sentence, it says the creation of the project profile will require, but we don't include those things because they're really specific tasks. They're not actual use cases. They're just within the project. Okay.
So you don't do the whole thing, is this,
You don't use the rest of it, but they use like, just like the second bubble
they stick
that
stuff
says
off?
create project profile.
off of it and call it include?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, so the.
This isn't just the list of
Yes.
things.
But, well, I mean, within that, I just wanted to know.
No, I don't.
I thought there was a list a while back. You just make just a list.
Yeah, that's the list, should just bubble them.
Oh. Then now you have the.
Yeah. Like, you just write it, like, small, close to the bottom. But they just create project.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we have to include the project profile.
So because it's, like, we can wire it, yeah, you need to create a profile for every project, we would do,
Those little arrow things, and then it says includes, and then arrow. I forget what that's called, but it includes that. Yeah.
so like that, so the relationship between those two.
So it would be two bubbles inside of the system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that
Just
needs to be,
sure.
so
There you go.
this needs to be underneath project, create project.
Needs to be under it.
Yeah, so underneath this, it should be like create project includes create project profile.
You just kinda wanna make everything like look real neat and
Yeah.
just not have like 60 bubbles under it.
Yeah, probably the best way to do it is just to line it up like we did in class instead of like putting them in random places. Alright, so then what's the next thing we have? So we have create teams, assign employees to teams.
So
Task.
how far do we want to go with getting rid of things? Because like you could say that creating the teams you have to assign employees to teams, you know, to create a team,
Right.
then that would be further, I mean, you keep thinking it.
Now you have to think of like, is that same person doing that includes tasks?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? Because like it said, the project director has to create the project and he has to create the project profile. But if somebody is, one person's assigning
So it's the
or
same
creating
person.
the team and a second person is assigning the employees to the team, then we can't, yeah, then it has to be two separate ones.
So it's the project director
Mhm.
assigns managers for each project, assigns a task for each project, creates
Yep.
the teams, and assigns the team members to the team. Create the project.
But they're all separate use cases, right? Like we would have to make a separate system.
Well, that's what we did with the project and the project profile. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you could do the same thing with the team and adding employees to the team. That's required to add people to the team.
Anybody else have suggestions?
Yeah.
I would,
Andrew's our spokesperson.
the only like argument I have with that is that it's in the second line of the first page. It's like a completely separate system requirement. So I think that that's why they didn't do that.
In the second, it's separate in the second.
But it's separate from the first, like it's separate from creating the project. So the only thing I really
Oh,
could
no, no,
add
I'm
those
just saying,
things to.
keep those separate, but I was saying create teams and assign employees to teams, make it include.
Oh,
assign
okay.
employees to teams.
Yeah, that could definitely.
That could work.
What is the problem? Like the answer say?
Yeah.
So
what is
the answer actually says that the project director assigns team/tasks to projects. And then it says project manager assign tasks to teams. And then project manager also assigns tasks to team members.
Wait, run that back a little time.
So I will draft.
And this like goes
So that's
pretty
from
much
the
from the
answer.
flow chart.
That's from the answer. The answer may not be 100%. It's the
No,
best one.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Out
This
of-
is just based, yeah,
The
so.
best one out that they
This was
saw.
the best one that they thought, but like I keep saying, it's like up for debate, we could do one way or another. But we should probably try to be close to what they did since they weren't, right? So I don't wanna be too off. So they did teams, tasks, to projects. And they did assign tasks to teams. Okay. And then of course they did the create and the create profile. So what they did was the project director assigned the teams and tasks to the project. Does that one make sense?
That one was the answer.
Mhm.
That's like what the goal is, like, make all that in the goal.
Mhm.
Create track projects, assign teams, and assign tasks to teams. Okay, yeah. Well, then the project manager is responsible for assigning tasks
To various teams, so the manager assigns tasks to teams.
But the team leaders assign tasks to each team member.
Say that again?
The team leaders assign tasks to each other team member.
Right.
But that's the answer. So what we have is a lot of extra stuff.
Yeah, and actually, it also says the manager also assign tasks to team members.
And that's from hiring.
Yeah.
Well,
So you've got
that's not really,
So
Accurate,
that's
I'll say.
3, and then you've got the create project and create book profile, so it's 5 other pieces of music. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, well, the sixth one goes with like the rest of the packet that I guess you find out later. Because I don't understand it yet.
Well, it's just create reports.
It's generate management reports, which is not specifically indicated here, but they did list it as an assumption,
okay.
just to make
Okay.
make the business like make sense to them. It probably totally works, but again, that's an assumption that they would say. So, but yeah. Yeah.
Did they put the include there?
Yep.
So that goes for next week. Does that mean, isn't that technically an assumption though, because it doesn't state, there's a few requirements that it says this is what it requires.
I just hear. Like
Well, yeah,
saying, and that and there, like
Yeah.
'cause it says that it does that and then the next one it's like it doesn't say. If you know what I'm saying, like the project director creates the project and he has to create the project profile for each project.
So the
And then the second line separates each of them, you know what I'm saying, like just the
So,
way
like-
that they
Because
did
it says the creation of the project profile will require, so that's one of the things that's like explicitly
It lists the things it requires, doesn't say it requires a project. I mean, this
That's
one-
why I think that part is like up for debate.
You
I
have to
think,
assume something, otherwise, what are we doing here?
And that's why I struggle with this class, is the whole like. we're
Don't
not-
assume.
Are we assuming?
Yeah.
It's
But
like-
assume what I assume, basically.
That's the whole thing, that you can't assume, you can only infer. Same thing.
yeah,
But I
Those are
think
set.
it also goes into
No,
like
that's
more
why I
depth
argued.
on things throughout the rest of it. Cause I feel like this could totally be inherited by this,
and so it doesn't need to be a use case. But if you think about it after reading through like the rest of it and then seeing their solution, probably makes sense with like the use case description on the creating project profile, because that's kind of a big step in the
Yeah.
system.
a lot of
So,
things.
yeah, so that's probably why they made it a use case, or they included it, because that's part of the business process.
So why do we attach the manager to assigning the tasks to the team members? They just assign this to the teams.
Teams working on it. I think I had trouble with that too.
Yeah, I don't think you're supposed to do that.
I had trouble with that too last time, I was like, yeah.
I don't
So
think
that one we probably don't think to do. But,
Because that makes sense, because everything is just what I want. What about the create project goes from the director?
is that the director? Yeah.
That's what I think it is. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
So, yeah.
What happens?
Any
That makes
other
sense.
questions?
Yeah, so does anybody have questions or comments or suggestions or something?
I feel like I'm not in the system.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like
So
our
what's the
project.
difference between our two, theirs and ours, they just combine apps together?
Yeah. Yeah, they made it like one use case because it's kind of like the same idea, I guess. So,
Okay.
But again, I think that once, like, you read through that, and I feel like if you made all of these use cases, and then you went back through the entire reading, you wanna think of what systems you're gonna make, like, it's sort of like breaking things into classes and seeing like if you can group anything together, because if we did assign teams and then assign tasks to a project, if we had separated them, you would have to do an entire other use case description and a system sequence or an activity diagram. So do you need to break those up, or are there enough duplicates that you could put them together and it would make a good system? Right. So,
But I do like
does
to
that make sense? though?
suggestion about update info, but it's not explicitly stated, so that's, is that why we're not doing it?
say that again?
The update info, because if you build a system that can't be updated.
I think it's implicitly like
Yeah.
it's supposed to be built in.
Okay, so that's why,
Why would you build a
Just
system
like
that
the
you couldn't
login,
update the
that could
info?
be like the
Just like
login.
Just like the
The same
login,
login.
Yeah,
It's already.
it's
So
like
it's
a
also
login.
a login.
Will already do.
but you need to put the login in the activity flow, right?
Well, that's an activity, yeah, but it, like, the activity, like, the activity flow is based off of all these use cases.
But we're not putting one in the use case.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
actually
assumed.
in the use case description, they do not mention and I think the use case description actually comes from a different section, but it doesn't specifically talk about login.
Do we, so on the activity flow, do we include the stuff that we leave it out here? That's when we
Yeah,
include it?
it gets like real detailed.
Yeah.
That's super detailed, like step by
You
step.
have to make a use case description, so that entire chart you have to make for each use case.
The activity flow for each use
And
case.
activity flow, yeah.
So that's why
A
it's
use case
super, super
description
detailed.
and an activity flow
Because
based
like
on each use
to
case.
create the project, they would have to log in and
Mhm.
detail all that in a flow chart.
Exactly.
Is there another resource beside, well, I guess you could text, but where you could just look at and try to,
Google?
there you go.
Yeah.
It's a really
That's
good
like
one.
half, like,
Yeah.
like I
Can
took,
we do that during the competition too? Just go
I'm
to
not
the-
sure.
Yeah.
Can you?
I used it when I did system analysis at regionals
Really?
last time,
I-
but you don't.
Yeah,
You
you don't
don't
have
always
time,
know.
like I really can't emphasize
I
that.
don't have time to read about it.
Taking one of, like,
You have to know what you're doing before you get
Exactly.
there.
Because
Another-
if you're like, how do I make a use case, that's gonna take you 45 minutes to figure out how to
Right.
make it, and then you
Right.
actually have to make it.
I do want to stress also that you never know when you have network connection.
You have
Because-
network connectivity problems.
When we went to regionals last year, no one had any internet for any of the competitions because it was so bad because they tried to do all wireless. So
Don't make it your approach.
yeah,
You have everything local that you need.
Get your own hardwire, I mean, bring your wires so you can hardwire. We kind of have a problem with that, why don't you hardwire?
So do you guys feel like you've grasped
Comfortable with the
this
use case
stuff?
diagram?
Or what would you say?
I know sometimes the includes use cases aren't always connected to the.
The
Like
actor?
for example, the director is connected in this case to the create profile as well as the create project. Is that? Oh,
Since
okay.
it includes,
Okay, what was it?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Since it's like inherent in here anyway. Yeah, that makes sense. So you probably did it both ways. Any other questions or suggestions or comments on use case diagrams that we can air out or talk about?
And that last thing you said about creating reports, you said that was just,
Generate reports, yeah. They said generate reports for CIO, and I think that comes along with the rest of
Like
the
11
problem
more
statement. I think that they
Yeah.
might have added that on later after they looked through the problem statement again. So, you probably have to look at it a couple times. But the good news is that after looking at the problem statement last night, it does group like which part to focus on for like each area. So in the deliverable section, it says the functional and behavioral models, and then it lists what those are. So your use case diagram, descriptions, blah, blah, blah. So in here, it actually has the section for functional model, behavioral model. And so you can base, everything, and then for the class diagram, it's called a static model. And then that section's in there too. So it helps you identify where to go for each of the diagrams, which is super helpful.
We also have previous
Yeah,
regions.
Huh?
Previous regionals and things like that.
This is all I know of, but I can ask Kevin if there's more resources or more examples
Previous.
somewhere.
One thing, like, we had the homework, like, we have, like, in the back of the chapters, we were gonna try practicing some of those, and then,
on the AITB side, it goes back to 2013. It's problem 2.
Yes, it does.
So if y'all want to look at that, you can always go on AITP.org.
Yeah,
Look at those
so
national-
honestly, and I think it's AITP NCC-contest and is it .org, I think?
I think that works.
But if you Google it and you put AITP National Contest, it'll be the
it's
first one.
.org.
Okay, it's .org. So is that the right? Yep. So AITP-NCC-contest.org, and that's where you'll find this problem statement and solution. So totally suggest to study it. So next time we're going to go over the use case description and the second one. And yeah, I think in the system sequence diagram.
And so if you guys have a laptop to practice, visual paradigm, sorry, my brain is not like crazy. Visual paradigm, because you're gonna need to know where, like, how you can add on, make these associations. It'll make it for you, but you're gonna need to practice the little buttons because it is pretty sensitive and you've worked with them before. So
So was the winner
it likes to
solution?
just add actors on
Visual paradigm?
actors.
No, could have been. I don't know.
Does that look like visual paradigm, the winner solution?
Probably
Yeah, it is.
because their system sequence diagram is like Yeah, it's like super complex, and I'm like, there's no way they did that on Visio, putting
I
each
know.
season part in there, no way. They must have done something like this. So, yeah, yep, but anyway, that's all we have.
And we'll have a projector.
Yeah, we will hopefully have a projector next time, so it'll be easier, and we'll meet again on Monday. We're gonna try, and we'll let you know. I have all of your emails if y'all, got into the meeting with Andrew. Hopefully everybody.
So next,
But yeah, Monday,
is that Thursday, Tuesday?
yeah, but that's next Thursday, sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
Next Thursday, and then next Monday at 5:30.
And this Wednesday we have debates,
I'll
right?
get hold of it.
And this
You
Wednesday
guys
we have
have
database, yeah, database design.
Are you
What
guys
room?
going over that too?
334.
3:34?
3:34?
Woo-hoo.
You wanna turn your video on?
yeah.
3:34 from 5 to 6.
Let me make sure before I lie to y'all.
It's in the email.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But the good thing is I have one.